Are you dealing with stubborn weight gain, particularly around the belly? Well, did you know that inflammation in your body could be messing up with your hormones in a way that's going to make it really hard for you to lose weight unless you can understand the link between inflammation, hormones, and weight gain? And that's what we're covering today. Hi, I'm Dr. Patricia Mills, holistic medical doctor with a natural root cause approach to your health concerns, and welcome to the Wild Wisdom Show. Today, we're going to be diving into how inflammation causes weight gain by disrupting your hormones. Now, what's interesting is that inflammation can be present throughout the body, and it can be present particularly in the brain. I've done multiple videos, and you'll want to check them out on why we get inflamed, what's the difference between acute and chronic inflammation, the root causes and the solutions. But today we're going to focus on why the weight gain could be connected to inflammation in your body. Now, when inflammation is present, it essentially means that the immune system is being activated at a low level, and the immune system can travel throughout the entire body, including the brain. And when the immune system is present in that low level chronic inflammation activation, it'll release chemicals, and those chemicals start to disrupt the functioning of your tissues. In the brain, for example, if you have inflammation happening at a low level in the brain will start to not respond properly to hormones that normally regulate your feeling of being full and satisfied and not hungry. So, for example, hormones like insulin and leptin are released during times of eating and feeling full. And when the brain is inflamed, it will no longer respond well to those, particularly in a specific part of the brain called the hypothalamus that regulates hunger. So if you have inflammation, you may experience that you are eating enough food, but you just don't feel satisfied, and you feel like eating more than what your body really needs. And that can be due to the inflammation. So in order to fix the hormone resistance at the level of the brain, you actually have to fix the inflammation. Now, the other experience that the body can have when inflammation is present is a generalized resistance to the hormone leptin. If the body is inflamed, it'll become resistant to that hormone. And leptin is the hormone of fullness and satiety, of feeling satisfied with how much you eat. So it's not just at the level of the brain, it's through all of the tissues that this can be affected. And when your body is no longer able to respond to that leptin hormone, which is also called leptin resistance, then you get that decreased sensation of fullness and increased hunger no matter what you're doing with your diet. And while diet can improve inflammation, often there's other things you need to do to lower that inflammation. And if you check out my inflammation playlist on my YouTube channel, Dr. Patricia Mills, MD, I have tons of resources there, including what kind of diet, the toxins, how to support your systems of detoxification, and all of the things necessary to reduce the inflammation load in your body. The other hormone resistance that can occur is insulin resistance. What happens is that with insulin resistance, that typically occurs because we're eating a diet that's high in sugar or too many refined carbohydrates, which is another fancy word for flour. And we're eating it in a way where the glucose levels in our blood are spiking high frequently through the day in and day out. And when that happens, it causes an overproduction of insulin hormone in the body. And that causes inflammation because it's too much of that hormone being produced in the body day to day. And that inflammation then starts to contribute to the experience of insulin resistance. So your body is stopping being sensitive to insulin hormone. That starts to dysregulate your glucose control. You start to get more blood glucose and less glucose going into the tissues for energy. So now the glucose levels in your blood start going up, and that's very damaging and inflammatory for the body. So insulin resistance as a result of too many glucose spikes can essentially cause inflammation. And then that inflammation causes that downstream leptin resistance, even worse insulin resistance, and the vicious cycle continues. Another hormone that can be very affected by inflammation is the cortisol hormone. Cortisol is like our stress response hormone, and it can be over-released in times of stress, so mental, physical, emotional stress. It can also be released in response to certain foods. For example, when we have high sources of fructose in the diet, fructose is something they add frequently to ultra-processed foods to increase flavor, to sugary drinks, to fruit juices, fruit smoothies, agave syrups, coconut nectars, maple syrup in excess, for example. Those are high sources of fructose, sweet wines, even things like oat milk, lots of easy sugar in those drinks where all the fiber has been removed from the oats and we're just left with the sweetness. So understanding that these sources of high fructose can also cause high cortisol. So it's not just an emotional, mental stress response to what's happening in your life. It can also be a stress response to what you're taking in your diet. And if you're eating foods that you're sensitive to, like let's say you've developed a casein whey protein sensitivity from dairy, maybe you've developed a gluten sensitivity. If you keep eating those foods and your body is now reacting to them, that'll also cause cortisol to go up, and that'll cause an inflammatory response, because when we have too much cortisol, we get inflamed. You can be having issues with high cortisol, particularly if you have a lifestyle that's very high in stress, high in sugar, ultra-processed foods, sweet drinks. All of those things can contribute to inflammation. And what's interesting is that when cortisol hormone is high, it'll affect the way that fat is distributed in your body. So cortisol has the effect of taking fat from different parts of your body and putting it more towards the belly area. And that's when you get accumulation of belly fat. And it's called in medicine visceral adiposity, fatness around the belly region. And the problem with that kind of fat is that when you have that fat distribution, it tells you that you are getting pretty darn inflamed. And that comes with its own health risks. We know that increase in belly fat is a sign of inflammation and a risk factor for future problems with heart attacks, strokes, high cholesterol, hypertension, diabetes, that central obesity, and a higher risk of death and mortality and, poor outcomes from disease. When we see belly fat, we take it as an opportunity to really dive into the inflammation root causes and address them at their source. So you want to make sure that inflammation is addressed if we want to reduce that kind of weight gain. The thyroid gland is also negatively affected by inflammation, and really every single organ in the body is affected by inflammation. Your ovaries, testes in men, those are all negatively affected by inflammation. Hormone production goes down. And in the thyroid, this specifically has to do with weight gain, because thyroid inflammation leads to effects of hypothyroidism. So your thyroid gland will start to make less thyroid hormone. And the thyroid gland is like the general of metabolism and energy use. So when you have good thyroid function, your body's burning energy for fuel, your metabolism is running well, everything is running smoothly, and you're not going to be in the state of hoarding energy and saving energy as fat. But when you have hypothyroidism, your body just can't burn that much energy. It doesn't have the thyroid signal to do that with the thyroid hormones. So it'll store fat, and you'll also have less energy as a result, right? People with hypothyroidism generally feel fatigued, less energy, and their body has less energy to do things. So the hair will start to fall out, the skin will start to get dry, the nails will start to get dry and brittle, and function generally will decline at every single level of the body. The thyroid receptor, which is basically what receives thyroid hormone for function, is present on every single cell of the body, which is very few exceptions. So when you have low thyroid function, that really tends to affect everything. But from a weight gain perspective, it's decreasing your metabolism. So even though you may be doing what you used to do when you were younger, you may notice it's no longer working for you. And one of the reasons is inflammation has come on board. And one of the things that inflammation does is affect your thyroid. And again, just as a mini review, it goes into your brain and affects your brain's ability to sense hormones of satiety and fullness like leptin. You start to get insulin resistance, which starts to dysregulate your glucose control. That causes more inflammation, and that starts to create a vicious cycle. You get the cortisol increasing, both as a result of inflammation and also in turn causing inflammation, that vicious cycle effect. And then you're going to gain fat, and particularly belly fat, although the fat gain with cortisol can be everywhere as well. And then the thyroid metabolism slowing down. Now, the good news is that you can reduce inflammation. And I see that happen in my clinical practice and in my women's health promotion programs all the time. When you experience weight loss in the first couple of weeks of starting a routine that is anti-inflammatory, both from movement, stress, food, toxin reduction, detoxification support, you will start to notice that you lose weight quickly. And that initial weight loss is actually the loss of water that is retained in the body because of inflammation. So the body will retain water if it's inflamed, kind of like a protective response. And that water retention leads to weight gain. So when you start on this journey of anti-inflammation, when it comes to weight gain, you lose a lot of weight at first, or 15, even 20 pounds in the first month. And then you get to a plateau, and you may notice that that weight loss slows down. That's because you've offloaded the water weight. The inflammation has significantly decreased. And then you have to stay persistent and consistent over time, making sure you're addressing holistically the weight and your body composition with good strength training, enough cardiovascular exercise, but not too much, eating an anti-inflammatory diet, supporting your stress, the detoxification pathways. All of those things will then contribute to ongoing, sustained, and sustainable weight loss to a weight that's healthy for you. Now, interestingly, some people genetically, when they are inflamed, will experience too much weight loss. So for them, output, so to speak, of inflammation is weight loss versus weight gain, and then they get back to a healthy weight once they do this anti-inflammation approach. So either way, you want to make sure that you're addressing the inflammation. So again, you'll want to go into my YouTube channel, Dr. Patricia Mills, MD. Check out my inflammation playlist for all of the videos I'm making to do with inflammation. And while you're there, please drop a comment underneath the videos so I can see that you're there and I can say hi. And if you enjoy the content, please subscribe to my channel. That is the very best way to support the Wild Wisdom Show. And save and share. Sharing is caring, and you never know when someone's going to benefit from this wild wisdom. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, day, or night, and I'll catch you next time. Bye now.